The whisper of silk against hardwood made him tense. Liam had never been the kind of man who startled at shadows or small sounds, yet tonight every faint rustle seemed amplified, ricocheting off the apartment walls. I remained by the window, arms folded loosely, observing as he stared at the dress laid across the bed like it was a riddle written in a language he almost understood. He was the dependable one. The planner. The man who color-coded calendars and double-checked the pantry before making a list. And now that same steady presence looked uncertain, stripped of his usual confidence. There was something fragile in the way he stood there, curiosity flickering beneath apprehension. Watching him hover on that edge sent a quiet thrill through me. I didn't hurry him. Silence can be persuasive if you let it breathe. No one else had witnessed this side of him. Not the coworkers who admired his precision, not the friends who relied on his practicality. Not even me, until this evening. And now he stood suspended in a private reckoning. I didn't expect it to feel like this, he murmured, almost as if the room itself had asked the question. Like what? I asked gently. He swallowed, glancing at the mirror, then the dress, then back at me. Like I'm on display, but also like I'm uncovering something I wasn't meant to see. That was it. Not the fabric, not the heels aligned carefully at the foot of the bed, not the wig resting in patient silence. It was the moment of awareness, the realization that identity can bend if you let it. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. No one's watching you. Just me. And maybe the version of yourself you've kept quiet. A nervous laugh escaped him. This is ridiculous. Why am I even considering it? Because part of you wants to, I replied. You're curious. That's not the same as crazy. Lavender drifted softly from the diffuser, mixing with the charged air between us. His fingers gripped the edge of the dresser as though anchoring himself against a tide he wasn't sure he wanted to resist. I had arranged everything with intention, yes, but not for spectacle. This wasn't about appearances. It was about thresholds. The space between who he believed he was and who he might allow himself to explore. You don't have to leap, I said. Just take a step. Feel the fabric. Let your mind wander for a second. Then decide. He hesitated. Then, slowly, he reached out. His fingertips grazed the smooth material, and something in his expression shifted, fear softening, intrigue taking root. In that quiet second, as possibility flickered across his face, it felt like the invisible line in front of him had begun to fracture. I sensed it then, once that invisible line shattered, there would be no returning to the comfortable version of us. I stepped close enough for him to feel my presence at his back, my hands hovering just shy of his shoulders. You've always played it safe, I whispered. Tonight, try letting go. Just a little. For me. His breath caught, I saw the subtle reaction reflected in the mirror. His frame shifted, tension tightening and easing all at once. I stepped away again, granting him the room to choose. There it was, that fragile flicker. Hesitation tangled with intrigue. My steady, methodical husband standing on the brink of something unpredictable. The first brush of silk against his skin stilled him completely. His fingertips traced the edge of the blush-colored dress, and surprise crossed his face at its softness. It felt almost unreal, as if the fabric carried a quiet invitation. He glanced toward me, silently asking whether this was absurd. I didn't respond. I let the quiet answer for me. His pulse beat visibly at his throat. Every instinct he'd ever trusted warned him to retreat. Yet beneath that caution was something warmer, something curious, urging him forward. He lifted the dress, allowing it to skim over his forearms. The sensation seemed to startle him, not unpleasant, just unfamiliar. The skirt slipped through his fingers, and for a fleeting second, his expression changed. He wasn't seeing himself as he had always been. He was imagining possibility. I crossed the room slowly, careful not to touch him. It's only fabric, I said gently. But sometimes small things shift everything. Everything, he asked, voice unsteady. Everything you think you are, I replied. Or everything you haven't allowed yourself to be. The mirror captured him mid-thought, his reflection slightly altered already, as if curiosity had softened the edges of him. His eyes searched mine for reassurance, though part of him feared what reassurance might mean. I handed him the wig next. Smooth brown strands, light and understated. Just try it, I murmured. See how it feels. He hesitated before placing it on his head. When it settled into place, his posture changed almost imperceptibly. He stood a little straighter, as if stepping into a role he hadn't rehearsed but somehow recognized. Then I arranged the makeup on the dresser, brushes, subtle shades, powders lined with quiet intention. You don't need much, I said. Just enough to glimpse the version you're imagining. His hands were uncertain at first, movements stiff and deliberate. But with each careful line he traced, each soft blend of color, something shifted inside him. The awkwardness began to fade, replaced by focus. Each detail reshaped not only his reflection but his confidence. Finally, the heels. He slid his feet into them with visible apprehension. The first attempt to stand was shaky, he laughed under his breath, half embarrassed, half exhilarated. This is ridiculous, he muttered. Ridiculous, I replied softly, can also mean freeing. Step by cautious step, he adjusted. And as he did, the guarded layers I'd known so well seemed to loosen. There was fear in him, yes, but also wonder. A thrill in stepping outside the narrow lines he had drawn for himself. When he finally stood fully transformed, dress flowing, wig framing his face, makeup softening his features, heels steady beneath him, he stared at the mirror as if it were revealing a stranger. But it wasn't a stranger. It was still him. Only now there was something added to his reflection, a blend of strength and fragility, hesitation and daring. And in that shared gaze between him and the mirror, I understood, we hadn't erased who he was. We had expanded it. You look, he faltered, unable to land on a single word. Different? I offered with a small smile. Good. That difference belongs to you. He wobbled slightly in the heels, catching himself on the edge of the dresser. But the unsteadiness wasn't just physical. It was deeper than that. This wasn't about fabric or color or the careful sweep of eyeliner. It was about stepping into a space where certainty dissolved. Where trust replaced control. Where he allowed himself to be seen in a way that stripped him of his usual armor. I didn't interrupt his thoughts. I let him stand there, absorbing his reflection. His gaze lingered on the mirror, studying angles and lines as though mapping unfamiliar territory. I could almost see his imagination at work, questions forming, possibilities branching out. The danger of being discovered. The thrill of secrecy. The quiet intoxication of crossing a line he had drawn himself. This had stopped being an experiment the moment he truly saw himself. He raised a hand toward the wig, pausing just before touching it, as if afraid that confirming its presence would make everything irreversible. I stayed close behind him, near enough that he could sense me without leaning on me. Look, I whispered. Not as who you've always been. Just look. A shiver ran through him. The dress shifted against his body in ways that forced him to stand differently, straighter spine, slower movements. The heels demanded balance and intention. Each small adjustment reshaped him. The sway of fabric. The frame of hair around his face. The subtle glow of makeup catching the light. I don't know if I can do this, he admitted quietly. It feels unreal. Or maybe it feels honest, I replied. Different doesn't mean false. The word lingered between us like a spark waiting to catch. He stepped closer to the mirror, tentative but deliberate. His reflection met him halfway, uncertain, yes, but no longer retreating. You're braver than you think, I said softly. A knock at the door shattered the stillness. He froze instantly, breath hitching, fear flashing across his face. The outside world had pressed its palm against ours. Reality intruding. He started. No, I touched his arm lightly. Stay. The knock came again, sharper this time. His chest rose and fell quickly, fingers clutching at the silk as if it might anchor him. The mirror revealed everything at once: anxiety, exhilaration, the intoxicating edge of risk. Feel that? I murmured. That's what makes it real. Real or ridiculous, he whispered. Sometimes they're the same. A shadow passed beneath the door. The faint creak of the hallway floor followed. The moment stretched thin as glass. He stood motionless, then slowly exhaled. I placed my hand gently against his back. No one can see you, I said. This is yours. The tension eased just enough for him to move again. One careful step. Then another. The heels clicked softly against the floor, no longer purely awkward but intentional. He experimented with a turn, slow and cautious. The skirt flared slightly with the motion. He caught sight of himself mid-spin and paused. For the first time, there was something new in his expression, not fear, not embarrassment. Something closer to admiration. I think, he began, voice trembling. I think I like this. I smiled. I know. Another subtle sound from outside made him stiffen, but he didn't retreat this time. Instead, he straightened. The risk was still there, humming beneath the surface, but it no longer owned him. Turn once more, I encouraged quietly. He did. More fluid now. The movement felt less like imitation and more like exploration. The dress flowed around him. The wig shifted naturally with the motion. His steps steadied. Beautiful, I said. His eyes widened. I don't know if I should feel that. Then don't decide. Just feel. The rest of the evening unfolded in cautious experiments, small gestures, measured steps, thoughtful glances at his reflection. Each sound from the hallway sharpened his senses, but instead of retreating, he leaned into the awareness. By the end of the night, he stood confidently before the mirror, adjusting a strand of hair, refining a line of makeup, shifting his weight in the heels with deliberate grace. The fear hadn't disappeared. It lingered quietly beneath the surface. But alongside it was something stronger. Curiosity. Confidence. Possibility. As he took another slow step toward the mirror, the apartment settled back into stillness. And I understood this wasn't about a dress, or shoes, or even secrecy. It was about the moment he allowed himself to expand. And once that door opens, even just a crack, it rarely closes the same way again. Every step he took was deliberate now, careful, precise, yet touched with a grace that hadn't existed hours before. I followed a pace behind, saying nothing, letting the current of tension hum between us. Then the sharp sound of a key turning in the lock sliced through the air. Liam stopped mid-stride. His eyes widened, the dress brushed his legs with a soft hiss, the wig shifting slightly as he turned his head. In the mirror, his reflection looked almost startled into stillness. Stay calm, I whispered. He couldn't move. His body had gone rigid, as if motion itself might betray him. The door handle clicked. My heart kicked against my ribs, but I kept my voice even. Just breathe. Nothing's happened yet. The door opened. Footsteps. Close. Adrenaline surged through him. I could see it in the way his chest rose too quickly, in the tremor of his hands against the silk. The heels felt higher, the room smaller, the air thinner. I guided him quietly behind the couch. Stay down, I murmured. Let's listen. A shadow crossed the hallway. The sound of someone shifting a bag, muttering faintly, then retreating. A door down the hall closed. Silence returned in slow waves. He exhaled shakily, hand pressed to his chest. Every instinct must have screamed at him to rip off the wig, to escape back into familiarity. But he hadn't. He stayed. See? I said softly. You felt it, and you're still here. I can't believe I didn't run, he admitted, voice unsteady. But you didn't. Something subtle changed in him then. The fear didn't disappear, but it no longer ruled him. He straightened carefully in the heels, adjusted the wig with steadier fingers, and faced the mirror again. I feel different, he murmured. Not just outside. Inside. That's the part that stays, I replied. Another sound outside, a car door slamming, muffled voices drifting through the walls, made him tense again. But this time he didn't shrink. He held himself upright, absorbing the sensation instead of fleeing from it. The apartment seemed altered, shadows longer, the low light catching the faint sheen of the dress. He stepped forward, measured and composed, each click of his heels a quiet declaration. He studied himself without flinching now. The makeup softened his features, the wig framed a face that looked unfamiliar yet undeniably his. He touched his cheek, then his hip, as if confirming that this reflection wasn't an illusion. This feels strange, he said quietly. But, right. In a way I didn't expect. Right doesn't always mean comfortable, I answered. Sometimes it means honest. He turned, balance steadier, posture intentional. The earlier panic had transformed into awareness. The possibility of interruption still lingered, but instead of shrinking him, it sharpened him. I'm exposed, he said, almost in awe. And alive. Exposure can be its own kind of truth. A faint creak from the hallway made him inhale sharply, but he didn't move to hide. He simply breathed through it. The thrill no longer paralyzed him, it energized him. I don't know if I'm ready to exist like this, he confessed. But I don't want to stop. That's where change begins, I said gently. He shifted his weight from one heel to the other, testing himself. The motion felt less like pretending and more like claiming. He picked up a small brush, refining a line of makeup with careful concentration. Each adjustment felt intentional, an affirmation rather than an experiment. Another distant sound. This time, he held his ground. This is me, he whispered. Yes, I said. All of you. By the end of the night, the fear and exhilaration had fused into something steadier. He walked the length of the room with quiet control, turned smoothly, met his reflection without hesitation. The secrecy had heightened everything, but the real transformation had taken place within him. The apartment no longer felt like a stage. It felt like a threshold. And as he stood there, heels grounded, shoulders squared, eyes clear, I realized this wasn't about danger anymore. It was about ownership. Nothing dramatic had happened. No one had discovered him. No illusion had shattered. Yet everything had shifted. Because now he knew he could stand in that reflection, fear, thrill, vulnerability, strength, and not disappear. The whispers around him shifted, what had begun as confusion softened into something closer to awe. This is incredible, Liam breathed, eyes wide, disbelief and adrenaline tangling in his voice. I didn't know I could. You can, I said quietly, my hand resting at the small of his back. And you are. Every gaze in this room proves it. A sudden crash split the air, champagne flutes shattering against marble. The sharp sound ricocheted beneath the chandeliers, and for a split second the entire ballroom pivoted toward the noise. Liam's body went rigid. Panic flared behind his carefully lined eyes. The mirrors caught everything, the tension in his jaw, the tremor in his fingers clutching the fabric. For a heartbeat, he looked like he might shatter alongside the glass. This is the edge, I murmured close to his ear. The place where fear decides who you are. Step into it. His hands shook, but his chin lifted. The room's attention fractured, some guests distracted by the fallen tray, others still glancing at the striking figure standing unapologetically beneath the lights. Every step he took now felt amplified. The heels struck marble like a metronome counting down to revelation. Each movement was both risk and proclamation. Then the air shifted. At the grand entrance, a silhouette appeared, framed by crystal light and polished gold. Someone who did not belong to this fantasy. Someone who could unravel it with a single word. Liam froze. The music dulled in his ears, the chandeliers seemed to dim. His instincts screamed retreat. Rip it all away. Disappear. But he didn't. You've come too far, I whispered. Don't surrender the moment. He inhaled, steadying himself. One careful step forward. The dress flowed around him. The wig settled like a crown he hadn't known he deserved. Conversations hushed as eyes tracked his movement. He wasn't hiding anymore. He was claiming space. The stranger advanced, gaze sharp, intrigued. Unexpected, they said smoothly. And here I thought tonight would be predictable. Liam's pulse thundered, but he held his ground. He felt fragile and powerful at once, a paradox wrapped in silk. Who are you supposed to be? The stranger asked, circling slowly. He swallowed. No one else, he answered, voice quiet but steady. Just me. A faint smile flickered across the stranger's lips. Bold. Around them, the room buzzed. Reflections multiplied him endlessly, vulnerability mirrored into strength. Fear refracted into something luminous. Another murmur rippled across the crowd. A familiar voice carried faintly from the far side of the ballroom. Recognition hovered like a blade. I pressed gently between his shoulders. Now, I whispered. Stand. And he did. Heels clicking in deliberate rhythm, he stepped forward, allowing the dress to move with him rather than against him. His posture straightened. His gaze steadied. He didn't shrink beneath the weight of possibility, he expanded into it. A misstep, brief, sharp heels skimming slick marble. A collective gasp. For a split second, time fractured. Then he recovered, transforming the stumble into something fluid, almost intentional. The movement became a turn, the turn a statement. Applause scattered lightly through the room, unsure but impressed. The stranger's expression shifted, no longer amused, but captivated. From across the ballroom, the approaching figure slowed, uncertainty clouding their face. Liam felt the heat of recognition press against him. He didn't run. He let the moment breathe. The chandeliers shimmered, the music swelled back into place. Another glass shattered somewhere in the distance, but this time he didn't flinch. He met his own reflection, countless versions of himself staring back. Afraid. Alive. Unapologetic. A small, steady smile touched his lips. I gave him the faintest nod. The approaching footsteps halted only feet away. Silence thickened. The world seemed to hold its breath. Now, I whispered again. He took one final step forward. Whether he would be recognized, confronted, or unexpectedly embraced hung suspended in the air. But one thing was undeniable. He was no longer hiding. And whatever happened next would not erase that.